Glad to be back on. We're here another week. Concept to cash flow. Let's do it. Looking at a way to help you all in a different way this week. We've covered some good topics. This is week 6. If you're on here, please share with a friend, share with people on your stream, on your page. We're here. We value your support. We appreciate your support. All of your views, all of your comments. I've had people approach me outside week after week. So I'm going to give people a few minutes to come on live. I have a guest that's really interesting this week. Is really going to bring some much needed value to folks. So I'm going to give a few people hello, whoever's here. Please put the comments, as you know, in the thread. We're going to work with more people. I am excited that we've been getting so many views after the fact as well. So I love the fact that everyone's tuning in live, but I love the fact that you're sharing it on your pages and you're telling people about it. We're getting so many people. So this week we have a special guest. I know we went the legal route before with Paulette Lundy from an estate attorney perspective, but this week we have someone who's going to give a different perspective on intellectual property law. I have my good friend, Ms. Dana Cooper, IP attorney, intellectual property and business attorney. A lot of people have intangible ideas, or I should say intellectual property ideas. You cover trademarks, not patents, but trademarks, copyrights, and those things. But I'll let you share what you do. So welcome, Dana, this week. I want to give you a chance, and you're with Cooper Legal. You can just introduce yourself to the audience. We're here.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dana Cooper, and I am the managing and principal attorney of Cooper Legal. My firm primarily handles business law, tech, and intellectual property. As Quay stated, back up a little bit. So, business, intellectual property, and technology. Um, my primary target or clientele ranges from everything from startup entrepreneurs to small business to mid-sized businesses. So up to about revenues of up to about $5 to $10 million to $0. So my firm handles the full gamut of needs for small business owners. Um, with respect to intellectual property, for those of you who don't know, intellectual property is a commonly overlooked area, especially for small businesses. A lot of times, small businesses don't think that they have the financial resources to obtain proper legal counsel before launching their businesses. And the IP is often overlooked. So, for those of you who don't know what intellectual property is, so Quay, I don't want to hijack the Q&A,
All yours.
between us. So do you want me to go ahead and give this
Go
spiel?
for it. You're doing great. Go for
Okay.
it. Actually, why don't we wait a minute?
Okay.
Because people tend to trickle in. People start to see us live and then they come in. So let's not get to it. Let's tell me a little bit. So how did you get into it, owning a law firm, opening a law firm? Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey
Journey.
first
Okay.
before we dig into the technical piece of it.
Okay. So as a very young girl, as early as I can think of, I just always wanted to be a lawyer. At that time, I had no clue what IP law was. I wanted to save the world. I had my cape. I wanted to be civil rights. I wanted to just save people, right? But as I grew older and I realized that I was going to have a lot of bills and certain areas that I may have been interested in were not going to pay those bills. So my areas of interest began to expand. Um, when I was in college or getting ready to go to college, someone in my family um, had an IP issue that ultimately caused some issues with them continuing that
Now,
business.
can I stop you? We say IP. When you
Mhm,
say intellectual property, I think sometimes we discount things such as recipes,
mhm,
uh, something you write, you distribute, something you've created that's not tangible, where you have a title to it.
mhm.
We think that doesn't have value, that's not property. So when
Mhm.
you're saying IP, you're talking about intellectual property.
Right, so they're intangible assets for your business, essentially.
Absolutely.
And usually what I tell people is your intellectual property generally is your business. So if someone misappropriates or they steal it, that could mean that you no longer have any business. So if you're a software company, and so that's what I was going to go into, a family member, that's what happened to them. And so that's how I became interested in IP law.
Mhm.
So if you have a recipe, a secret recipe, or you're a software development company and someone steals the code to your proprietary software that you're licensing to, the state government, if someone steals that, then you no longer have a business because that information is now either public or now accessible to someone else to use for their own benefit. And
Mhm.
so that is why that's why it's so important to protect your intellectual property. What I let small business owners know is, again, your intellectual property oftentimes is your revenue generator for your business. And
Mhm.
so failure to protect it, by registering it, and policing and making sure other people aren't gaining access to it, failure to do that could be detrimental to your business and ultimately lead to the downfall of your business. And you might have to start over. Oftentimes, small businesses are very vulnerable to intellectual property theft by large corporations. So I tell people all the time, even big corporations like free, if they can get it from you for free and then they can sell it, or license it out to somebody else for $125 million, it's nothing. And so the other thing about that is too, is the reason that small businesses are so vulnerable is because the large corporations know that even if they steal it from you, that you might not even be able to fight them out in court. So it's like, okay, they kind of dare you to come after them.
Yeah.
So so it's very important that you protect that intellectual property at the very beginning, because like I said, that is typically the business's revenue generator.
You see, I'm surprised. A lot of people come on. We have in our community because we're talking to our folks today,
Okay.
and in our community, we make things. We've mastered services, but that recurring revenue model is one that you can't beat. And this is when IP, intellectual property protection, becomes tremendously valuable. The idea of making something once and making money off of it continuously
Mm-hmm.
is where we have voids. We do retail, we do services where we're exchanging our time for money. But when it comes down to understanding the need to create products that can be sold 1 to 5,000 without physical inventory, if
Mm-hmm.
we're in a community where capital and access to capital is our primary complaint, this is where we need to be. Um,
Well, so to your point about access to capital, so if you have some type of proprietary, so some intellectual property, so let's back up just a little bit,
mhm,
because I want to talk about how your intellectual property can help get you access to capital. So, what intellectual property is? We're talking about copyrights, we're talking about trademarks, patents, and trade secrets. Copyrights are works that are created, so they're expressive or artistic works. So
mhm,
when you think of copyrights, you want to think of authorship. So did you write a book? Even software code can be copyrighted, and artistic works.
mhm,
So how many people have created a T-shirt design or some type of artwork, and then someone else steals it and puts it on a T-shirt, or they start making, I don't want to use any big department stores, but there have been some recent litigation on, uh, well, we use, well, some large major corporations who are selling stuff out of their department stores, that were alleged to be misappropriated from a small business owner,
mhm,
their artwork or clothing designs. So that's copyrights. Trademarks essentially protect your brand. So you're talking brand reputation. um, Patents protect inventions. So if you have some widget that you created, some flying chairs or flying car, whatever, that's patentable. And then we have trade secrets. Trade secrets are essentially confidential information that derives some economic value or creates some competitive advantage for you against a competitor, right? But the value is that it's secret. So an example is Coca-Cola's formula, KFC's secret recipe.
Mhm.
Those types of things have give them some competitive advantage, right? Because no one knows what that secret recipe is. So a lot of us have those in our businesses. So to Quay's point about access to capital, what a lot of small businesses don't know that you can use your intellectual property as security interest to get access to capital. So if you have something, a lot of times, there might have to be, if it's just in the idea phase, it may not be possible. But if you have some past performance about what this, what your widget or process, some business process or technology that you've created, and let's say you have a government contract, you may be able to use that as security to get access. I mean, not access, as security for capital for your business. A lot of small businesses don't recognize that.
Did you know that Coca-Cola funded their big advancement before they went mainstream with their formula?
Oh, I didn't even know that.
See, the Coca-Cola, this is what really drew. If you ever get an opportunity to tour the Coca-Cola plant in Atlanta, the vault that holds the Coca-Cola formula is one of the most secure vaults in the world. It is humongous. It's the size of a bank itself, where only a few people have access. When they wanted to raise money, a bank in New York funded it. They wouldn't say which bank. A bank in New York funded it, and they had to ship the vault to New York
Oh,
City to
oh
keep the
wow.
vault under collateral to
Mm,
secure the loan for multiple, I think it was like $8 million in like
mm,
1920s.
mm,
So now, as a person in the IP space now and in software and working on tools, I learned that a lot of the tools that you learn about under employment, you can turn into solutions that you can secure and then even sell back to your employer or use in another segment, providing you have the insight to not make it work for hire and develop
mhm,
it under your
mhm.
employment arrangement.
So
Um,
that was the next thing that I'm going to say. So yeah, so a lot of times when you are working for an an employer, as an employee, a lot of times you're signing over those rights, depending on what it is, especially, again, in the software space. I was just working on this issue today. So in the software space, a lot of times, what you'll see in the employment agreement is that anything that you have created within the scope of what they have hired you to do, they're
mhm.
going to say is going to be theirs. A
Yes,
lot of times there's some exceptions. So if you work after hours, but sometimes, employers will try to overreach and
yes,
they'll just say anything. It's question. I mean, depending on where you are, a lot of times that's not enforceable, but they're going to try their hand because, they've hired you for a reason, right? They see some value there. And so that's the best way for them to acquire your mind, you know, contractually, because they can't do it physically. So
mhm.
absolutely. Hmm.
And that's why it's important in agreements to outline the scope of the problem you're solving in contracts, because
Hmm.
frequently they can bundle and say everything you make under this time period is there under their ownership,
Hmm.
unless you can specify that everything is not work for hire.
Hmm.
Everything related to those duties are not included in that, because a lot of big ideas. I have another colleague who has a 8-figure, almost 9-figure accounting firm that caters to the government, and they have proprietary ways they go about handling certain aspects of their service.
Hmm.
And he developed that while working at a top 5 accounting firm,
Hmm.
and didn't develop it there.
Hmm.
Left to develop the concept,
Hmm.
created it, secured the IP, and then went. And what he shared with me was they tried to take it. The
Hmm.
agency tried to copy his software and produce a lesser version of it to get
Hmm.
the same solution without paying him the licensing fees.
Well, that's similar to what happened to that family member that I told you, except in their instance, it wasn't the government agency that tried to acquire the work. It was they were brought on from a prime contractor as a sub, and so
Mhm.
the prime had to sub the work out because they didn't have the know-how to do it right. So they lulled them along So we allege that they lulled them along for all of these years so that they could eventually trick them into, either stealing it or turning it over, so that they could be basically, now they don't have to pay millions of dollars on this other contract. They can keep it in house and get rid of the sub. So,
we had a conversation. This is very germane too. There was a famous fish place in Baltimore. Can't say the name. That
okay.
they were famous for making fish, a certain type of trout,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently there was something, either the owner passed or something, and it went to another owner, but somehow the business did not make it. But
Mm-hmm.
this recipe was famous. My
Mm.
argument is that the recipe was probably more valuable than the real estate
Mm-hmm.
evaluation of the business based upon sales.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the recipe still existed in a way that could be reproduced,
Mm-hmm.
it would almost be like permission to print money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think for our folks, we focus so much on the
End product.
cash exchange, the
Mm-hmm.
cash flow aspect of business,
Mm-hmm.
rushing to the bag and leaving the bank in the background because we're grabbing the bag.
But that's a lot of that, and that is why I'm such an advocate for small businesses, because a lot of that is just it out of ignorance, just lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because they don't want to; it's just because they don't know a lot of. I mean, and again, like I said, I work with some corporations that bring in millions, and they still fail to protect or have been negligent in protecting their intellectual property. So especially as a small business owner, you're the IT person, you're the accountant, sometimes things just fall through the cracks also.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think a lot of it is, again, most people just are not aware. They're just ill informed about the protection mechanisms. And then a lot of us, we want to cut corners and, oh, I can do it. I get plenty of people that call my office and say, well, I could probably do it myself, but I just don't have the time. No, you can't, because I went to law school. I went to law school to learn how to do this. You're not going to necessarily, you're not going to really be able to do it on your own. I often get people who try to do it on their own and it's done improperly, and then they're unable to protect it later on. So I say that to say, a lot of us, we try to cut corners sometimes too. Um, and again, not recognizing the real value in hiring someone to ensure that it's done properly.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what it boils down to.
I think that's what I'm going to put up here is protecting your business's intellectual property. I think that's what we need to be sharing. That this is what we're really focusing on is that IP piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think in every business, there's workflows, there's processes. I'm sitting here thinking now, have I secured everything that could have value? We developed some things a few years ago that a marketing company took and ran with, and they just sold for, I wouldn't say they took it. We were just the first ones I've ever seen, and everyone had ever seen do things this way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, another 9-figure exit. We did not secure the intellectual property. We had the whole automation of everything down to everything produced because we were focused on the pursuit of revenue and cash flow. We
Mm-hmm.
pursued the bag and
Mm-hmm.
left the bank.
Mm-hmm.
We just grabbed the bag off the counter and left the bank vault sitting there untouched,
Mm-hmm.
where the IP would have probably been worth exponentially more than we ever made using the methods.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you can license it. You could have licensed it, Yeah, but like I said, it's just that was what I said earlier. It is your revenue generator. But was that your revenue generator, or was that just a result of whatever the end product was?
it was our revenue generator. It's what we use to identify a mail list, generate our mail, match it up to
Mm-hmm.
our call center, whole nine.
Mm-hmm.
It was very proprietary, and it's almost like someone kind of gave them the blueprint, or they could have just had the idea, the same revelation from going through it. They could have come to the same conclusion. I just found it ironic that they knew what to do. And so the other side is I give people credit. It's one thing to make something. It's another thing to have the wisdom to know what to do with it in the marketplace and
Mm-hmm.
to know the timing to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely a different skill set.
look,
Mm-hmm.
attorney, is that spelled right? Intellectual? Yeah, I think that's right.
Yes, you spelled it
I
right.
want to make sure I have it right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
a numbers person. All right, so let's kind of. I want to ask you. So, how do you know if something could potentially have value? Because we all do. What are the indications that this is something I need to look at securing?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Is it useful? Right? Is it, can someone derive some, does it add value to somebody else's, for somebody else's use, right? Whether that be aesthetically, so again, copyrights, um, or like you were saying, business processes,
mhm.
right? So that's going to add value to someone else's business. Right there, that tells you this is something someone's willing to pay for this thing or this service from me. So why shouldn't I, again, like you said, there's two different skill sets, right? So there's a skill set in understanding that the underlying process that went into creating that work is separate from selling the widget, right? Selling the thing. Um, and so I think that that's the when I was saying a lot of people don't understand, they're just unaware of the fact that the process from A to Z that created that product is also a separate product, right? So you might have two different streams of revenue: the final product that you created, as well as the processes that it took to get that product to market. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, is does it add some type of value to someone else's life or to their business? And if the answer to that question is yeah, then you need to protect it.
All right, I had somebody ask me a question. I
Mm-hmm.
hate to go to Q&As, but this is you have meat this week that you're hitting on things that I see this being one of those shows that people watch again because it's going deep and we're not talking about the same topic. So we have a lot of people in our community now that are producing things like cosmetics. I see like the sugar scrubs and butters, creams,
Mm-hmm.
oils, and everything like that. So the question is, and I'll put it out here. I'm gonna post it anonymously. Another bashful Betty that wanted to ask the questions in the comments section is, and the comments left. Okay, if you have a product like a shea butter or something like that, I was going to post, or if you have like a cosmetic product, what will be the process to protect it? Can you protect it? So if you're taking it to market, someone can't just steal your recipe, or if you hire people to manufacture it, they can't just take your recipe and run with it. What would distinguish something that is just common, you can't, protect it versus what you can protect as far as recipes for cosmetics?
Okay, so that's actually a really good question. So, when we're talking cosmetics, we're really talking about potentially a patent
Mhm.
or a trade secret. When you patent something, it becomes publicly available, right?
Mhm.
So, but you get a monopoly over a certain number of years where no one, even though now you have disclosed what that recipe is, after so many years, then somebody else has permission to replicate it,
Mhm.
right? So you think about pharmaceuticals, right? Someone has the recipe, makeup, or whatever for this certain drug for a certain period of time, and then you get people who make not generics, but they make other branded products of that pharmaceutical. So it's the same thing with cosmetics, right? In order to get a patent, though, it has to really be something new, something that hasn't been something new, right? So just a regular perfume might not be patentable. Definitely something that comes out of the ground, that's natural. You can't get a monopoly over something that everybody is that's really available to everyone else, right? And there's I'm not going to get down into the weeds because we only have like 30 more minutes, but that's typically the biggest hurdle that people who are trying to get a patent have to overcome. And the other, I was next say the second biggest thing is that it can't be obvious. So it can't be obvious that it's again something else that's already existing, and then you just added some water and some milk to it, and then now you have this new product, that wouldn't be enough to get you over the hurdle.
Yeah.
There are certain criteria that you have to meet in order to get a patent. If it's not patentable, or if you do not want to disclose it, because like I said, once you disclose it, it's open. So Coca-Cola and KFC haven't disclosed it. They, after all of these years, have been able to maintain the secret sauce, the
Mhm.
secret recipe, right? So that no one could duplicate it. So something like I said, a cosmetic, body butter, whatever. If you have this secret formula that you can keep secret, and that can't be potentially reverse engineered, you could just keep it as a trade secret. Um,
Mhm.
so that you don't have to disclose it. And that way, as long as this can't be reverse engineered, you don't have to worry about a competitor coming back to, I think we're talking about us today. I recently watched that Madam CJ Walker movie, and I would say that that is a very good example. Keep it secret. The way that it was depicted in the movie is that she kind of reverse engineered it, or she took the existing formula and she changed it a little bit to her own.
Mhm.
So with respect to, again, cosmetics, body butters, fragrances, things of that nature, you might be better off, and patents are very expensive, you might be better off just keeping it as a trade secret, so that you don't have to disclose what the formula is. And then
Now,
you
the
could
trade
potentially have it
secret legal,
forever.
is that a legal protection trade secret?
No, there's nothing. So in order to keep your trade secret, a trade secret, the protection mechanism is keeping it secret. So that typically includes, like you said, keeping it under lock and key, some type of vault, some type of encryption, password protected. Um, Typically you're required to use non-disclosures, confidentiality agreements, and a lot of times I would say make it limited to only a few people, maybe just the high level execs that have access to the formula,
Mhm.
right? People who only have a need to know basis. That is how you keep a trade secret.
Yeah. And then what about when you pass off to manufacturers? Do you recommend doing non-disclosure agreements or non-competes on it? Do those
Yes,
protect you when you
yes.
do
So
that?
that's the protection mechanism for that. That is correct.
Now, again,
Sometimes too, especially when it's something that's, again, you're talking about formulas. You may have one manufacturer do a small piece, and then another one do another piece, and then a third one bring everything together. So not one
wait,
segment.
say that one more time because people miss that. That's the ingredient. Designers do that all the time. Share it again. Break.
So let's say we have this secret formula, but we
Uh-huh.
can break it down into, I'm not a scientist, so elements or
Mhm.
segments, right? That can then eventually be combined together, in order to keep it a secret. So no one person has access to all of the information. You may send part of it may go to manufacturer A, part of it may go to manufacturer B, and the other part may go to manufacturer C. And then they ship all of these separate pieces to you, to home base, and then you combine them all, and then maybe send them back out for fulfillment. Maybe
Yes.
that's the best way to protect it. Again, it varies based upon the type of product,
Mhm.
what your means and resources are to be able to protect it. But essentially it's about, again, keeping it as secret as you can to um, prohibit or prevent public disclosure.
I got a piece of advice from a friend who had taken his company, who had exited his company. He said something key. He said, if you can't make the money to protect it, you'll never raise the money to defend it if someone takes it.
Mm,
And
like that.
he
Mm-hmm.
said, it'll cost you exponentially more
Yeah, absolutely.
to defend your claim
Mm-hmm.
than protecting it up front. See, in our community, we go listen to a lot of our shows. Are the buzzwords on Clubhouse now are could get your URL on your website, protect your trade name. But the main thing we provide, if we're providing services, is the proprietary way we fulfill the service
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
not protected. So the minute we hire someone, we've essentially created a competitor.
Mhm.
because we haven't secured our processes
Mhm.
in a way that allow us to scale.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that because it goes back to my earlier statement about us trying to, cut corners and do all this other kind of stuff. People cry. I mean, you can get a trademark for $2,000, but then they decide they want to go to legal somewhere and pay $199. There has to be a reason that there's this big cost differential there, right? So pay the money to, and I tell people this all the time, just pay the money to do it right on the front end because,
Mhm.
like you said, it's going to cost you 10, 15, 100, 200 times over. And I'm not exaggerating. Like a patent dispute is going to probably cost you millions of dollars to defend.
Millions?
Millions.
I was thinking of hundreds of thousands, and you said millions.
Trademark is probably hundreds of thousands.
Oof.
But a patent dispute, because a lot of times you have to have experts. It is so convoluted to try to prove that, again, especially if it's something that's not so novel, right? Like something that's so new. Like if it's something that's an improvement upon something else that's already existing, you have to be able to prove that, again, how this person had access to, whatever,
Mhm.
to try to prove that there was infringement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say trademark would be hundreds of thousands, but patents is millions.
Since you brought up cost, what would you say one should look at and consider as the cost to people? Give me comments. Come on, bashful people, come into this to the feed now inside.
Sure.
What would you say that a person should say if they have an idea?
Hmm.
What do you think they should budget if they're developing their idea to protect the intellectual property?
I would say a copyright, you probably starting around $500 plus filing fees, which are under
Yeah.
100, right? Um, Trademarks, I would say you can get a good trademark lawyer for about $1,500 for one trademark, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't include the trademark search, but that is just to file the application.
Okay.
You may be able to get one cheaper, like if you got somebody who's just coming out of law school, they would do better than one of these something you found on the internet for $199 because
Mhm.
they have the skill set that is necessary to determine whether or not your work infringes on someone else's, well, your trademark infringes on someone else's,
Mhm.
so that you don't pay all this money and then later get a cease and desist because someone else says that, well, I was using this trademark first. Um, and patents, I would say 10 to 15,000. And that's for the application. So, except for a copyright registration, when you're talking trademarks and patents, a lot of times, especially small businesses, and I get it because it can be cost prohibitive, they forego the search that is required before you file the application. It's not required, but strongly encouraged before you file the application.
Mhm.
But you want to do that first because you want to know whether or not you're getting ready to put this thing to market or start using this brand or creating this brand that infringes on somebody else's. Again, if you've infringed on somebody else's patent, you're talking millions of dollars, right?
Mhm.
And you don't want to again put something to market and then they come take all your profits because they're alleging that they that your thing infringes on theirs. With respect to trademarks, like I said, you don't want to build this brand for someone later to either come right off the back of it because you've built it now and they're like, oh, okay, it's popular now, so let me come, you know make my own, or make counterfeits of this other brand.
Mhm.
um, or you don't want to create this big brand and then someone else comes back and say, well, I was here first and now I'm sending you the cease and desist, you need to start all over.
So, what about people who have businesses that are like service based, like event planners, um,
Hmm.
who have proprietary themes? Let's talk about like what are the common businesses we have, like barbers? Do they have? I had a barber friend of mine that had a very interesting way of a method of solving some problems related to men's hair.
Hmm.
And I was surprised that he didn't see the value of protecting the property,
Mm.
and it was copied. because a lot of tools are created by people who work in the craft. So
Mm-hmm.
again, message is your job could be the blessing and the pathway to your opportunity
Absolutely.
because you get a chance to be paid to observe problems
Mm-hmm. And
that you
solve
can
those
fix
problems
and
within.
solve as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So for those non-traditional businesses,
Mm-hmm.
what could they be leaving on the table um, as far as IP?
So again, it's very industry specific, but you were very you articulated it very well in that they should be thinking about um, problem solving solutions to common industry problems. Those are the type of things that derive some value to everybody in that industry that you can eventually monetize, right?
Mhm.
So I can't think of anything for event planning. And it just maybe, again, it could just be my ignorance because I'm thinking, okay, you're sending out invitations.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe, but you met, oh, let me take that back. Maybe as an event planner, you put together a book, right?
Mhm.
To talk about what is the most effective or and cost efficient, whatever way to plan a event, $5 million event for only $1 million or something. You put
Mhm.
it in a book. That book is copyrightable, right? That
Mhm.
book you could probably, you could monetize, you could sell. I can't imagine that a event planner would have like a curriculum. I don't know that they have event planning classes or whatever. So that might
Mhm.
not be a good example for me, but I could definitely give you some examples for the barber. So like you said, if what are they called? What are the bumps that gentlemen get on the back of their necks or
Yeah, the hair bumps.
right. So if you come up with some type of some blend that you see that's working, why wouldn't you bottle that up and sell it? So
They
you,
do sell it. They just
they
don't
did
tax
sell
it.
it, but they didn't right, but they didn't protect, but they didn't protect
Yeah.
the underlying formula to do that. Like I said, once that formula is disclosed, if it is patentable, right, and it's disclosed, then after that patent expires, um, someone else can is a it's permissible for them to recreate it. But if they
Mhm.
keep it like Coca-Cola in a vault, they could be generating wealth for their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's children, for many years to come. Um,
I heard something really wild, and this is a little close to home for people in Divine Nine community.
mhm.
That one particular fraternity had the audacity to secure the trademark for the 1911, which was the founding year of
Mhm.
the one main fraternity that exists, Kappa Alpha Psi, and also,
The one meanwhile.
but but that's interesting. So they
Mhm.
secured the trademark for it.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's have you heard anything about that? I don't know if it's rumored or not. Is
Mm-mm.
that real or
It's not rumored, and I don't think it was just Kappa. Um, from what I can remember, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, a lot of the Divine Nine organizations, I think, I don't remember if they tried to protect it after the fact, but Converse made, I believe it was Converse that made sneakers that were targeted towards the Divine Nine organizations.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what caused the uproar. It's because they were using the colors and the founding years. So I
Mhm.
don't know if a lot of the organizations did the trademarks after that or if it was before that. But I really think that that was the impetus to that's what created that issue.
Mhm.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about trademarks, some of the common misconceptions. So Kappa, Alpha Psi, Fraternity Incorporated, that trademark is probably limited to certain types of services. So it may be charitable services or fraternal order services, fraternal organization services. Did I say charitable? Charitable community services. And it may be apparel, right? So when you have a trademark, your trademark is limited. So they don't have a trademark for 1911. Like someone could use 1911 for a pizza shop if they wanted to, right?
Don't
So,
start don't start the influx of foolishness. But go ahead.
so what I'm saying is the trademark is limited to a particular service or product that you register that trademark for.
Mhm.
And arguably, and for related goods and services. So I'm using that example. If I wanted to use 1911 or 1913, if I wanted to use that for, again, pizza, um, software, I could do that because that is not the service that they provide.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the common misconceptions. Another common misconception is that um, so like I said, you don't get a monopoly over everything. Also, is that your trademark or alleged alleged infringing trademark does not have to be identical.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, people will come to my office and they'll say, "Well, I already did a search. I didn't find anything for Dana Cooper Inc." But if but there could be a competitor out there and theirs is Deanna Cooper Inc. That might be close enough to be infringing. So
So
it's
I can't open up McDowell's and
no, you
sell the
can
Big Mick.
you sure cannot, because when I tell you McDonald's is coming for you, baby, no, that would be too close. So that's a good example. That would be too close.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be identical. It has to be similar mark
Mm-hmm.
for related goods and services, arguably competitive. It's a long line of litigation about that, but we're not going to get down into the weeds. So, those are things that I would definitely like to kind of put out there to let people know that because you decided to spell it differently, Black people, we like to spell. we like to play with some spellings because you decided to spell it differently, or you want to be sophisticated and put it in French. I don't know how to say McDonald's in French, but that's not going to pass muster. You can't just append something else on the front or back of it. That's not enough to avoid trademark infringement.
Mm-hmm.
I just passed the store the other day. They called it Thrift Star Us. That's not close enough. I mean, that's not. I mean, that probably will because the services are totally different. But I use that as an example because, like I said, we have to understand that you can't just take somebody else's name and put a little razzle dazzle on it and think that that's going to be enough. It's probably not.
Let's talk about clothing designers
Okay.
that are big in our community. The
Mm-hmm.
logo and designs, can they secure the designs of their actual clothing styles?
So when you say the clothing styles, are you talking about the print on the clothing, or are you talking about the clothing design? So like if I make a jacket with a huge collar or something, are you
Yeah.
talking about the actual image or the actual pattern of the clothing? Which one?
Let's say this extra large collar style or something like that, unique. Are these things that could be protected because they could be considered trademarks or symbols of the brand?
Right. So let's say this. So clothing, we really don't have enough time for that. So let me explain why. No, let me explain why. So in copyright law, there's something called the if something's considered to be a useful article, right? Which means that it has some utility, right? Something that can be used outside of the artistic expression of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's an analysis that has to go on, that has to take place to determine whether or not it's copyrightable.
Mm-hmm.
So in the clothing example, if there is not some artistic value outside of the utility, it's not protectable. So unless that clothing design might be considered to be so artistic that it could be sculptural work, then it will
Mm-hmm.
work. But just because it's pretty, that's not sufficient.
Yeah. See, I was wondering because there's a very popular Nike shoe, the Air Force One,
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of private brands now are coming up with renditions of this shoe. And there have been a couple of designer brands that have come up with it that are selling unique, privately branded shoes
Mm-hmm.
that are extremely similar
Mm-hmm.
to the Air Force One design,
Mm-hmm.
with just a difference in instead of the swoosh and some type of other emblem. But it's and a couple of people who are really popular on Instagram selling these. So I always wondered because they also then turned around and said that the larger manufacturers secure their actual designs.
Mm-hmm. They're called trade dress.
Oh, okay. So they could be infringement, but just infringing upon it, but just not big enough to get snatched yet.
Right. So, I'm glad you said that because I get clients that call me. Well, why can this person? I get emails and DMs all the time. Well, why this person's doing this and this? Just because you see it on the internet does not mean it's legal.
Ooh.
Just because you see, you can't just cut and paste people's pictures and put it on there just because it's on the internet. That does not make it legal, and a lot of people get in trouble for that. With respect to the Air Force Ones, so Nike does have a trade. It's the official name of the protection is called a trade dress, which falls under trademark law.
Mhm.
So they have the design of the shoe is protected. um, these other people who are legally selling designs that may be similar to are able to get away with it because there is something different from the design. So the sole might be thicker or skinnier. The stitching may be different. Um, the logo may be different.
Mhm.
Um, and that is why they are able to legally. I think that that's questionable. But that is why that they're able to legally sell it. The ones that Nike is going after, not necessarily because they don't have deep pockets, but the design may be different enough that they feel that it's not worth it.
Mhm. There's enough variation. So
Hmm.
here's the question I have for you. Next one is for our people who are in startup, because again, we're talking about cash flow, getting to cash flow, but it starts with concept. When in the planning process or thought process should people start engaging an IP attorney? And I'll give you an example. My daughter has a brand and everything. Her first thing, because she's listening to Clubhouse, she wanted an LLC.
Hmm.
Where what I told her is your first priority should be securing your trademark for what you plan to sell, because all the LLC is your entity formation. You might not, when you're getting off the ground, what if somebody you go to as a vendor takes your ID or something like that? When should someone in the process start to engage an IP attorney?
You trying to take my job? So
I'm
no,
trying to set you up. I'm throwing you all oops here.
you actually gave her very sound advice. The IP conversation should start at the planning phase. Honestly, probably before you even have the widget,
Mhm.
before you have the business. For a lot of small businesses, so you're correct, there is a difference between the business name and the trademark. But a lot of small businesses, in order to create the brand awareness,
Mhm.
they will use the business name as their trademark. So before you, if that's the case, if you're going to do that, then you should register the trademark before you should do a trademark search before you register the LLC. Because if now you're going to start putting the LLC out there, the name as your trademark, it could be infringing on somebody else's business.
Mhm.
So unless you're going to use it strictly as the business name and not create a brand around it, or make your brand that business name, then you should do a trademark search and registration before you register the LLC. Most people come to me after they've registered the business. They've already been putting it out there. And then I have to come back and say, oh, we have to start over because I found a company in California that's doing this.
So
And
you're the first step, not the last step.
absolutely, like I said, it's that planning. Honestly, it really should be before before those ideas become tangible. Because again, you want to make sure that you're not encroaching upon somebody else's rights. Well, it doesn't make sense to put money into something that you can't legally do.
Yeah, yeah. This is one of the this is one of our most substance filled. I know the views are going to be off the chart for this because it has so much shelf life. What we're talking about, you're not giving us. You're going so high level on it. I think a lot of people are going to have to go back and watch it again, myself included. Just to kind of go back for those that may have missed it. If a person's getting started and they want to start the process with an attorney who can be counsel, LegalZoom and all these things are great tools, but you don't get the counsel and the relationship to go with it in your local market. So don't go to LegalZoom and then call the attorney up that's on here later saying,
Ooh,
hey, bail me out because I filed it wrong. Garbage in,
yeah,
garbage out.
say that louder for the people in the back.
Yeah, don't come after the fact. Talk to the people up front. In your own community, we have these professionals.
We do.
in our community.
And let me tell you this. I would love for all of you guys to pay me to do it, but there are free resources out here as well. You can go to score.org.
Mhm,
Sometimes they have volunteers. They will at least be able to connect you with a business coach.
mhm,
They have, but sometimes they have volunteer attorneys that can assist you. Maryland Volunteer Lawyers of the Arts, I volunteer with them. I do believe that their services are limited to creatives and artists. Um, Washington Area Lawyers of the Arts, for
mhm,
those of us closer to DC. I do now, even though they are lawyers of the arts, I have seen some things come across the bulletin that I do believe I could be making this up, but I don't think that they were necessarily creatives or artists.
mhm.
Um, and both of those organizations do have an income threshold, but when you making $0, it should be easy to make that threshold.
Indeed.
um, but like I said, SCORE, they're affiliated with the SBA. Again, those services are free. Any small business development center. So DC has one, Maryland has its small business development center. There are volunteer lawyers or consultants there that can assist you. I say consultants and business coaches, you really do need a lawyer, but you can check those resources first to see if there are any volunteer lawyers that
Mhm,
can assist you with those. University of Maryland, Baltimore has a free legal clinic, and they do patent registrations, patent filings, as well as trademark filings.
mhm,
I think they do copyrights too, but I know for certain that they do trademark and patent. I think Howard has a law clinic as well. So check out some of the local law schools to see if they have a clinic there.
mhm.
They will provide you with free services.
Law clinics.
Those services are
Dropping all these jewels, when should they come to you and pay you?
well.
If you get all the free resources, when should they
Right.
pay you?
I told you when they should come to me at the planning phase.
Mhm,
But well, there's no but. I don't want to negate that. Like I said, those are lawyers who can assist you. I get again, you and I had this conversation earlier that a lot of small businesses do not believe that they can afford counsel. So that's why I give out those free resources. Because I'm not a personal injury firm, so you're not going to get a free consultation when it comes to me. And I don't work on a contingency.
mhm,
So I just try to keep it 100 with it, everyone. You're going to pay for a consultation. I typically apply, if you retain me within a certain period of time, I will apply a portion of that consultation fee to your services.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's just not free. And for people who are trying to cut corners, I'm just not the one. But I'm an advocate for you guys, and I'm here to support you. And and
Some
so this
corners,
is my free service right here. But
yeah, and this is tremendous value. I think the reality we have to have is law school's not free. I didn't learn my craft for free. I paid. I went to school. I had to learn a lot of expensive lessons. As much as I would love to do everything I do for free to the world, my household bills are not free either. I don't live for free.
right.
So money is an exchange mechanism, and we're not above saying that or we should pay for things that we find valuable. I don't think we should look to get everything free because some things have value, and we're looking for support after the fact. It's not just the service, but it's the relationship and support that the exchange gives. That you can go back for consultation. You have a place to start from when you start with that.
And
So
someone who can hold your hand and really explain to you the process. Um,
yeah,
when you're looking for a lawyer, this is what I would suggest. That's your opportunity to interview the person. I know that it could be kind of a put off because we do charge for a consultation, but you
mhm,
want to make sure that you get your value from that. So I would say that you might want to think twice about a lawyer who you fill out a form and then they send you something, you don't ever get an opportunity to talk to them. I Your preference is your preference, but I think that a legal service is something where you kind of want someone who can explain to you and that will take the time to explain your rights, your what obligations you may have, so that you understand what it is that you're getting. I do not take the approach, and some do, and it works for some. Like sometimes I have to get on my clients because they're like, okay, Dana, if you said do it, I'm just gonna do it. And I'm like, no, I want you to understand why you're doing it, because I may not be with you at a certain meeting, right? So you need to understand what you're conveying at this meeting and what you may be giving away when I'm not there,
Mhm.
right? So you really want someone who can take the time to explain to you what your rights are, so that you can be an advocate for yourself, to prevent from getting in trouble. It's
Mhm.
a big misconception that you go to lawyers to get you out of trouble. Really, you should be seeking counsel to prevent
Get in trouble.
it. Right, so you don't get in trouble, because like Quay said, it's extremely expensive when we have to clean it up.
I've had to do cleanup before, and it can be
Mhm,
very painful.
mhm,
People miss sometimes that corporate lawsuit can easily cost you high six figures to defend.
mhm,
When you get commercial lawsuits, they're not hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands. In many cases, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars
mhm,
to go to court for commercial reasons. You said something, you dropped jewels here. I always mention something from the good book. It says, our people perish for a lack of knowledge.
mhm,
Um, but I add another line to it where we suffer because of a lack of wisdom. And there's a difference. We are at a stage where the internet gives us access to so much information
mhm,
that if you're not studious, you can receive something that you see on the internet as fact. But
mhm,
those of us who are more academic and foundation will say, is it a scholarly reference?
mhm,
Is
mhm,
it peer reviewed? Who wrote it? Is
mhm,
it reliable information that you're obtaining? So
mhm,
you may be getting a bunch of knowledge, but the knowledge is a LLC is a good way to form and start your business. The
mhm,
wisdom is saying, if I get audited with an LLC, they could drag all my personal finances into it, and there are other entities that may serve me better. So what you're paying for in many cases
mhm,
is the wisdom that the experts have, where you
mhm,
can read the same policies and laws, but without that foundation and that education, your takeaway might be completely incorrect. So
mhm.
I see the value in hiring experts like you for sure.
What I tell small business owners, I say it is worth the investment to pay. I don't charge $500 an hour, but if I did charge $500 an hour to speak with someone for $500, to kind of give you a blueprint of where you should go, which direction you should go, and which direction you shouldn't go,
Mhm.
is is really like $1 million. Because like I said, if you don't have that blueprint and you just shooting in the dark, you're gonna spend a whole lot more than $500 in 2 years or a year from now, because you're trying to clean up a mess. So
Yeah.
I just say invest that money, $500 or a couple of hours, so that someone can sit down with you and just give you a blueprint. Maybe sit down with you and say, okay, what are we gonna do? What is this business? Where do you see this business in 5 years? These are the things, these are the considered things that you need to take into consideration to make sure that your business, to the extent that you can, nothing's guaranteed, to make sure that your business is late, to make sure that your business is successful.
Mhm.
I'm sorry if you had to pay $2,000 for that. To me, it's worth it.
That's
I mean, people pay $2,000 for sneakers.
I think where, and we're almost running out of time, but I think where we're getting to is pride. We said this is going to go fast.
Mhm,
Our pride wants our idea validated. So we often go to people with ideas that we're going to say, that's a great idea.
mhm,
But the reality is, in many cases, we need people who are going to shoot holes in the idea and
mhm,
say, you know what, you need to be watch out for this, and this,
mhm,
because ultimately these are the pitfalls. And I think what you get when you go to an attorney are the things that are risk management perspectives
right,
that you need to that imply, hey, everything's not going to go right.
mhm,
And that's the reality of opening a business or going in into anything. Everything is not going to go according to plan. You know, you can go with all the plan in the world, as I think Mike Tyson said it. Yeah, all that planning and all those maneuvers go out the window the minute you get hit in the mouth. I mentioned all these things, but these things happen. Murphy's Law is alive and well. Stuff happens.
Mhm.
Dana, thank you so much for coming on. You know what? Reconnecting was a blessing. We got to do business because I need to get started on some trademark stuff, and I'm not legal soon. So I'll be reaching out this week, putting you in contact with two people to get rolling on something because I think two people have something really going on, and I'm going to bless them by sewing into getting them started.
Oh, that is
Do the whole thing, but I'm going to put up some of the money to get them started, and they can continue the rest from there. But can you give us some closing remarks? Anything you want to close out with? Please give your contact information. How do they reach you? Can I put that in here?
Sure. 202-642.
Wait a minute, let me put it in 202.
642 5470.
And what's your social media tag?
Ooh, I think let's do the website, and there are links on the website that take
Okay, perfect.
So www.cooperlegal, Legal solutions, solutions.com.
And you are a Black-owned business, right?
I am a Black woman-owned business.
And you're a member of which fine sorority?
Delta Sigma Theta
All
sorority.
right. And I'm gonna post your information, your contact info in the thread so that people watching later can see this. This is how you get in touch with Dana. Your closing comments, Dana?
My closing comments are just entrepreneurship is not easy. Don't beat yourself up because you're going to make mistakes. So I'm not here to try to sell you some pipe dream and say because you come to me or any other lawyer that all of your problems are going to be solved. Because I just be lying to you for lack of a better word. But there are some steps that you can take to try to ensure. So just like insurance, to try to ensure that your business is successful and is sustainable. And it is just wiser and better to make the investment on the front end. And again, it's an investment in your business and in yourself on the front end than to try to clean up messes in the back.
Love it. Love it. Yep. Stop chasing the bag and get to the bank. Seriously, think big picture. Stop chasing the bag, get to the bank. Because the bag is short term. Again, thank you all. This is Concepts to Cash Flow. Hopefully, we're helping you bring your concepts, your ideas, your dreams, your vision into fruition in this season. If you're thinking about it, pondering it, get started. We've given you the team of people to help you. And again, we're not just here to collect a check. We are here to help you get started. So if you want to reach out to us just for guidance, direction, we're here. Dana dropped a lot of jewels that I'm sure you would email to people if they reach out to you, those free resources if they need it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you can get started. So let's keep this going. And again, this is not for a profit agenda. This is just to bless our people. So see you next Monday. This was week 6. 2 more weeks. Let's see how this goes. God bless. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me. Good night, everyone.
Stick around.